One of the last things my mom said to her one and only grandson before she died was, "I hope you grow up to be a good Catholic boy and man." What she said to him surprised me. It wasn't something I heard her talk about much over the years. Oh, I'd say she was a good Catholic. She went to Mass every Sunday. She helped people when she could. She said her daily prayers. And she played bridge with the Catholic ladies every Wednesday. A good Catholic boy and man. I remembered back to that last year. A dad came to see his son. He was a sophomore at the time. They went for a walk in the park, and they talked about many things. And one of the things the dad said to his son that jumped out to the son was, he said, "I hope and pray that you are being a good Catholic kid here at Washington University." I thought of my mom's words to my nephew. Well, some of us over-identify, I think, with being Catholic. I think that's possible and happens. As I hear most of you talk, your reasons for not identifying your faith is that you don't want to be boxed in. You don't want to be pigeonholed by others who might read it in a certain way. You don't want to be judged just because of that tag called Catholic. Or maybe you're just not quite sure what you believe, or if you fit in this at all. And how you fear you might be judged. Maybe you're most afraid you'd be judged as small-minded, maybe extremist on one issue or another, maybe dorky. Perhaps this is something that you see that you've graduated from now, and you don't really need religion anymore. Perhaps some of those reactions are understandable when I look at what some claim about this faith of ours. Just last week, one of our students asked, "How can I be a part of a church with whom I disagree on some things?" Or another saying how embarrassed she was by Catholics who seemed to question nothing and take everything as infallible, which, by the way, is a condemned heresy of our church, of the early church, called ultramontanism. But that's her perception. We don't ask hard questions about this stuff. Granted, there's so much in our church that is truly embarrassing. Priest scandals, for sure. Who goes to communion and who doesn't. The shrill voices about reproductive issues. The problem with our church is not Catholic. The problem with our church is Catholics. The truth is, we don't always do church very well. But I have to wonder, God isn't done with me yet. Why would I think that God is done with the church? I am not perfect. Why am I demanding then that the church be perfect? I grow in my understanding of what is right and wrong and good and bad. Why can't I make room for that ever-emerging church to do the same? And decide to work within the church to help the church be a much more effective instrument tomorrow than it is today. The question I have to ask myself is there a value add here to my life and to the life of the world? Is this worldview worth embracing still? Is there a better one out there somewhere? Is there more to understand about other faiths before I settle into this one? Then when might I ever know enough to make that choice And might I wait too long to ever plant myself anywhere? I got a call just yesterday from a young man who said that his mom was dying and he wanted me to go and anoint her. Well and good. But she had left the church years and years ago. She was dying and she had no community to die in the midst of. No priest, no church, no sacraments. Nobody to pray for her. When do we get ready for that? When do we start making the decisions to belong somewhere? I remember when 9/11 happened, one of the faculty coming here to the CSC to pray that day, saying, I really wish I had a church right now. I think there's going to come a time in all of our lives when we're going to say, I really wish I had a church right now. But that's not the time to have one. Or is it? Do I even know enough about this church I was raised in, my own Catholic church, before I reject it with any integrity? Jesus in this gospel you just heard proclaimed understands that some things are hard to stomach and difficult to wrap our minds around. And he certainly understands that some might find him disagreeable and some of his teachings disagreeable. And so he doesn't stop some he loved dearly from moving on from him, if that was their choice. He doesn't say you can't leave at all. Oh, there's a sadness in him as he sees them walk away. There is in us too, as we see so many leave this communion. Our response needs to be like Jesus. We're sad, granted, that we can't share this anymore. But he didn't badger him or beat him up for doing that, nor should we. All we can do is invite him. And more than anything else, be an example with our lives of the joy that we've found here. Last week was not a very fun week for me to be Catholic. I ran into one young woman up on campus, an undergrad actually, who went off on me. Went off on me for not wearing my blacks enough, my clergy shirt, and the rest. The rest are important too. And several other issues she chose to go off on while she was at it. My only consolation as she walked away was that she had that sort of pinched look to her face. A mom of one of our students went off on me last week as well for not being strong enough against the issues in the church that she's strong on. If my agenda wasn't hers, then I wasn't being a very good priest, especially to her son. I get discouraged sometimes by people who seem to argue about things that to me just don't seem to matter in the long run. You know the old saying, Nero fiddles while Rome burns. There are a lot of things going on in the church and in the world that really, really matter a lot right now. And I get discouraged by how mean people get to each other in our own church. Yet, when I get discouraged, I ask myself the same question that Peter asked. To whom would I go? Where else would I go? There's so much here in this tradition, here in these centuries of seeking, here in the very universality of it all. Here in the vast wisdom we've accumulated over the centuries, here in the reservoir of learning, here in the great saints, this institution has birthed for the world. Here in the way we take care of the poor, unequaled in all the world. Here in the hard questions we are willing to ask in the halls of Congress about life and death and war and the economy. Here in the words of our poets, and in music, and in art, and in stained glass, and in carved stone. Here in our own Catholic anthropology, our unique and powerful understanding of what it means to be human in this world. Here, under the big umbrella where there is everybody. I do not support a Catholic triumphalism of any sort, nor does this community in any way support a Catholic triumphalism here that sneers at the rest and feels somehow superior to the others. But nevertheless, I have to say that I love being Catholic even when it hurts, because of its understanding of reality, of the really real. And the God revealed in Jesus has given me more life than I could have ever imagined. And this church of ours has given me a horizon that we call the kingdom of God, against which I live out my life day in and day out, and towards which I continuously strive in my life. But to survive in this church, I have to take the long view, remembering that you and I, we are still the early church, and the church will be around for a very long time. And the church has always struggled in its understanding of itself and God's ways, and will. And if I remember to take the long view, then we can go forward and throw our lot here and give it our best shot. It is important, so necessary, that each of us be critical thinkers about things Catholic. To be critical of the way the church works is not to be disloyal. Some of our greatest saints were critical of the direction the church was taking in their day. Why shouldn't we be in ours? But never without love. Ever. Love for each other and for this church. Maybe the real question I have to answer for myself ends up being, will you leave too? We all have to make that choice at some time for ourselves. Nobody else will do that for us. Oh, maybe they did for the first 18 years, but as of this Mass, this morning, never again will somebody make that choice for us. We have to choose a worldview, take on a collective purpose if we want to flourish and have the biggest impact we can possibly have on this world. Regardless of how you identify on Facebook, if you choose to see yourself as Catholic, be a good Catholic boy and man. Be a good Catholic girl and woman, especially during your years at this university or wherever you live, wherever you work. I promise that when it comes to what will help you flourish, when it comes to what will help you be everything you can be as a human being, and especially at the hour of your death, you won't be sorry that you did.